my name is James White and I'm the founder of InTouch CRM, and welcome to another edition of the Seven Figure Club podcast. So I was really lucky to meet a guy called Marc Jantzen as a result of a connection with another lady who I know. And a couple of things that really struck me in terms of being able to have a conversation with Marc were two things really. Firstly, networking is really important. I got the chance to speak to Marc, who's done a couple of podcasts for a couple of very large organisations. So I'm absolutely thrilled that he was open to doing a podcast with us here at InTouch on the Seven Figure Club. But the key thing really is is the ability to network and engage and interact with people to find out suitable people for this. And I got to know Marc's sister Elka through an event and made the request and was lucky enough to get Marc to agree to doing the podcast. But also when you talk to someone such as Marc, who has literally he sold his business back in 2013 to Capita, had a large-scale consultancy business which was incredible in terms of what it offered, and was able to get a large multinational brand like Capita to say, yeah, I like that look at that company, I want to buy it. It just shows you that there are some incredibly talented and super successful business people out there that have achieved a lot, but are also willing to give back. And Marc hadn't met me, but I reached out to him through his sister and agreed to come on the podcast to share his stories, to share his thoughts on what it is that he felt he could offer. And there was some incredible wisdom and insights gained in the podcast. Had the chance to chat to Marc for around 40 minutes and talked around everything about how he built the business, how he focused in an area to be an excellence, to show excellence in a specific space. And you'll notice that I've talked about that in other podcasts in the past, where Mike Michalowicz and other people have mentioned this idea of niching and focusing on an area is uber important. And it's something Marc talks around. And it's also interesting to know how and to hear from Marc around his views, even though as a chartered accountant, how pivotal he sees sales and selling is in a business. And it's really key to listen to some of the thoughts that Marc's mentioned and raised on the podcast around how to sell effectively and how to build relationships for the long term. And he talks around something, it's a great story which I'll let you listen to. He talks around advocacy, and the story he gives there is quite incredible around how he built advocacy with his customers and not just necessarily a sale, which resulted in other long-term business. So I was really, as I say, blessed to have the chance to talk to Marc a couple of weeks ago around what he did to sell Blue Sky to Capita, how he built his business, what he's learned, things that are particularly important for him as an entrepreneur, and really how he achieved the success he did. And so I think the best thing I can do is say it's an incredibly great interview in terms of being able to listen to Marc. Not obviously, hopefully the questions I asked were relevant and interesting for you guys, but really, here's a guy that sold his business for a large sum of money. Is certainly a very worthy member of the Seven Figure Club, and I'd encourage and urge you all to take note of some of the things that Marc had to say, and the wisdom he shares here is something we can all learn and pick up from. So without further ado, let's get into the next edition of the Seven Figure Club podcast, and where I had the chance to talk to Marc Jantzen from Jantzen Consulting. So thanks very much, Marc, for joining us on the podcast today.
It's a pleasure, and nice to meet you.
Yeah, great stuff. So tell me a little bit about, obviously, you for those viewers and listeners to the podcast, you sold a business called Blue Sky back in 2013.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that business and actually sort of how you got from where it was to the point where you were then in a position to sell it.
So the business started in 97, and we were initially, it took a few years, I think it's fair to say, to work out exactly what we were and what we were doing and what we were going to specialize in. Initially, it was contact center training and consulting, helping organizations set up new contact centers. So it was a combination of consulting and training. And it's fair to say that we struggled with that actually for quite a long time, because as a result, clients couldn't put you in a box. They didn't have a budget for you necessarily to do the kind of work we were offering. And we ended up with quite an eclectic bunch of services, really. But essentially, our propositions developed over the years, and I would sum it up to say we were about sales and service transformation and cultural transformation through leadership and management development. That's kind of what the business was about. The journey, from start to finish was a long and tough one. There's no doubt about it. Lots of lessons. And as you say, we managed to get to a point where we were running a profitable business, sort of 27% actually EBITDA, and we sold to Capita in 2013. So yeah, it was great.
It's interesting that you said about the fact that you started in 1997. A lot of businesses sort of nowadays also go into business actually thinking it's going to be an easy win, isn't it? Start up and in a few years' time it's all going to be sort of. So the fact that you started in 97 and got to 2013 shows that you've got to be. Businesses don't become successful overnight, do they? It takes time.
Well, they do, unless you're lucky or you're incredibly bright or you just hit on an amazing idea. I think the majority of owners of consulting business, certainly that I talk to, it takes time. It takes time. And quite often they haven't necessarily started their business particularly strategically. They've either been made redundant or they've just had an idea, they've got a client, and as a result, it just evolves. And of course, by the nature of consulting work, is you are involved doing the doing and delivering to clients. And so the amount of time you get to build and work on the business is limited. And I think that's what holds us back, really, and that's why it takes longer.
It is. And you mentioned, obviously, there's a number of questions we're going to talk through, but you mentioned around actually sort of you had an eclectic mix of services and things that you did. One of the things that when we talk to a lot of our customers around being sort of focused and it's an area we found a challenge with in touch is, there's always a bit of a worry for people because they worry that they're going to miss out on other opportunities. Have you found as you've sort of gone through your career with the businesses you have that being focused in one area is a big help, or is that something you think is important for businesses to succeed now in the current sort of climate?
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. I think it's said often, and it's not a new insight, but you've got to be quite bold and brave to take that on and really do it. And I certainly was given that advice and didn't take it. Was too scared that I was going to miss out on. Had some good profitable revenue streams, and I didn't really want to kiss them goodbye and just focus on one thing. Knowing what I know now, then I should have taken that risk, really. And in my new business, that's absolutely what I'm doing. So, I think it makes so much sense on so many levels, because if you focus on one primary service offering, then it makes selling easier, it makes marketing easier, it makes delivery easier. You build a team of people that are all connected and engaged in the same thing, rather than having one guy who does this and one guy who does that and a few guys that do that, and they don't really connect because they've got different interests and different propositions that they're working on. So it goes against the sort of entrepreneurial, creative, focused, variety, which we all thrive on. But ultimately, if you want to build a business and maximize your equity value, then it's kind of number one lesson in my book.
Yeah, that's great advice. And ultimately, I guess a lot of business owners go into that, they don't just do it because obviously they change careers, but they do have the dreams of achieving the success. And we call it seven figure because everyone wants to achieve that success in the moment and feeling. How did it, when can you describe to me the moment when you actually sort of, it was all done and dusted? How did you feel? What was the feeling inside of you? That, was it elation? Was it disappointment? What was it? Was there any words you used to describe it?
So there were a few stages, as you can imagine, and different emotions associated with those different stages. I think the elation came at the moment that I received the first offer for the business. So I was in an airport. I was with a bunch of mates about to head off skiing, and I got it through on my phone, and I'm reading this offer letter on my phone, and literally jumping around in the airport, and told one of my close friends and I was just absolutely made up. But at that point, that was just an offer, that was subject to due diligence, that was subject to negotiation, that was subject to contract, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that was probably the most elating time, because then from there on, once you've got that offer, my focus then switched to, okay, can I leverage it up? Which I was able to do. And then also it's about, how do we make sure this offer doesn't go away? And how do we make sure the business continues to grow through doing the transaction and going through the process of selling the business, but maintaining the performance. That's really tough. So yeah, lots of emotion.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, I've talked to a few people that have been in that position like yourself, and they say they go through this mixture, but all of them sort of seem to have that yeehaw feeling that sort of when it happens. So, did you? And I should ask the question. Well, did you buy champagne on the flight? Was it a case that you were going to go and enjoy some time with the guys, or did you sort of be careful and say, right, I won't do anything until it sort of comes through?
No. I'm far too. I don't know what the right descriptive word is, but I spent the flight analysing the letter and writing a response to negotiate the deal up. Basically, that's how I spent the flight. So I had to get my initial responses down on writing. So yeah, I was on my laptop on the plane. Yeah.
And all your friends are on the champagne thinking of you, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, on my account. Yeah, exactly.
Great stuff. I mean, talk to, obviously, you built up the business and to get it to a stage where, a company like Capita, who, UK known and globally known in terms of what they do, in terms of, how did you sort of reach out to them, or did they reach out to you? Because that process of actually when someone wants to engage and buy what you offer must have been incredibly, not so much this proud moment, but it's quite it's the whole feeling of actually, especially a company like Capita, it's huge, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, so what happened was they approached us. In fact, when I say they approached us, a broker approached us on their behalf. He was clearly on commission to find businesses that Capita would find attractive to bring into their stable. And he sent me an email. And to be honest, I ignored it for probably about a week because I thought it was just spam, because you get quite a lot these days of people saying, they're going to find they've got someone who wants to buy a business, etc. So, but I was working with a mentor at the time who was involved in selling consulting businesses, and he was supporting me around growth strategy. And so I sent it on to him, and he knew the guy. So he picked up the phone, they had a conversation, turned out it was a genuine interest, set up a meeting, and, it went from there, really. So we didn't go through an auction process, a marketing process. We were approached, so it was quite straightforward.
Yeah, sure. And obviously, when you talk about Blue Sky, you built up the business to have, hundreds of, I think it's hundreds of employees already, or 30, 35 employees and a number of associates and people working with you. When you were sort of, running your business, what was the one, is there one good thing that you had about running the business, or one bad thing you had about running the business that, because it must be, it's quite stressful, isn't it, with those amount of staff and that sort of, sort of business. Was there anything that struck you around, as you were growing that you thought, this is something I don't enjoy, or actually that people listening can sort of empathise with? So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in terms of, it's funny, probably the people fit into the good and the bad box. So people make it all worthwhile. You've got someone to share the journey with, have fun with, learn with, but equally it can be incredibly stressful managing and leading people who, particularly in the consulting world, where they're generally bright people, so they're quite demanding, and that can be, and it's the clashes that can happen between different personalities that can be quite stressful to manage. But I would say probably the best thing for me was the autonomy. So having control over my own destiny is really important to me, and that absolutely, you get that completely. And then I guess the downside is simply the feeling of responsibility when things are not going well. And I have had situations where I did have a situation where we lost a major contract and had to make some tough decisions, and couldn't afford to keep the whole team on, and it's at times like that where, it's quite upsetting, because you've built a business, you've built a family almost, really, and a real culture. And it hurts to let people go in that situation. So I would say that was the toughest aspect.
Yeah, and you're right. And obviously, I think, for any business owner, making those tough decisions is difficult, isn't it? But actually I guess it's that sort of fight or flight process, isn't it? You go for, things are not, going, if something's happened, you've got to take those things on. Is there any advice you sort of give to people about making those tough decisions, things that you use that, you said, right, actually, this is how I'm going to do it? Or was it a case of just like, I've just got to go and do this and get on with it?
Well, I think I am very much a case of, you weigh up the options, and, if the writing's on the wall, you make the decision and you just, it's JFDI, you just get on with it. But I think what I have noticed, though, and so I have a kind of financial commercial background, which a lot of consultants don't have. And so I think sometimes things can run away from you and go on for too long because you know it's there in the background, but you haven't actually done the numbers and you haven't really analyzed your pipeline and really thought through your cash flow. And so it comes and bites you on the bum, when really, if you've got the right level of reporting and visibility available to you, then you should be getting, you should have a heads up on that a good few months ahead. So I think it's having visibility and awareness of where you are financially, and understanding what the milestones are, and if you cross over a certain milestone, then the decision has to be taken, and you get on with it.
You mentioned about pipeline there, and obviously, I know you've obviously, to build a business and sell a business, you've got to have huge sort of sales experience and knowledge. In your experience, when you talk to lots of different businesses, I'm guessing a lot of people want you to mentor them and help them and drive their business forward. Now, is pipeline management, and I know this from a sort of CRM perspective, I find a lot of small businesses aren't very good at that element. They're not very good at sort of knowing where their business is going to be, and you sort of talk to them about numbers and targets. Is that what your experience of a lot of sort of companies that you engage with as well?
Yeah, I find it amazing actually, because I don't understand how you survive and how you make decisions without it. Because we had a weekly pipeline report, and all the account managers, the salespeople, the delivery people would feed into updating the latest position on the accounts, because it's incredibly dynamic and changing as clients change their mind on a daily basis.
Sure.
But in order to make decisions, whether that's employment decisions, investment decisions, product development, whether you're going to qualify a deal in or out, having an awareness of where you are, financially from your pipeline is fundamental in my book. But you're right, it seems to be lacking.
Yeah, I mean, we talk to a lot of people about it, and we sort of say to people, if you don't have targets, you don't have areas where you're going to focus on. But we've found some incredible things that people don't have, in place, and like you say, you can't identify where you're going to go as a result of it. But I think sales in general is an area that a lot of small businesses struggle with, and they sort of don't really, they're frightened of selling, or they're not sure what to sell or how to, or they sell in a way that isn't conducive to sort of what we would see as being the right way to sell. And is that something also you found as well, that the way in which organisations sort of sell now is it's areas they need a lot of help with?
Yeah, I think it comes from, again, a symptom of the fact that certainly in the consulting world, we're typically expert at something. So we might be an IT consultant, an HR consultant, an engineering consultant. Doesn't make us a marketeer, doesn't make us a salesperson. And unfortunately, if you're going to build a business, you've got to be both of those things, or you need to be able to bring people in and direct them. But sales is the lifeblood of any organization, but particularly consulting organizations, because we're all, we don't tend to win long-term contracts that are repeatable and recurring. They tend to be project-based. So if you can't sell what you do, and you can't position what you do and articulate what you do in a compelling way, then the chances of building a scalable, growing business are pretty slim, I would say.
Sure. And obviously you grew the business at Blue Sky to a stage where someone, a large company like Capita was going to buy. Do you have any particular, tips or hacks that they call it now, whereby you use to get that amazing results and growth? Because I'm guessing you did what you just said there, and you were able to articulate your vision to enough different companies and to get them to buy into what you did. And is there anything in particular that you think that, tips that you've learned that are actually to share in that respect?
Lots and lots and lots.
We've got time for them all.
Yeah. How long you got? Because this is a particular area that I'm really passionate about, and I love the fact that sales is both art and science. It's about relationship, but it's also evidence-based, and there are systems and processes you can use to support you to sell effectively. But ultimately, you've got to be able to relate and connect with the human being on the other side of the table as well. So, a couple of things that I would say in terms of things that often work that maybe are a bit unusual. One would be to say no. People always say yes to the client, and say no. If you say no to a client and because they've asked you to do something that's slightly outside of your remit and it's just not your sweet spot, then you build an awful lot of credibility by saying, no, that's not what we do. I'm sure I can refer you to someone or help you with someone, but actually this is what we do. This is what we're expert at. And if you have anything in this area, then we absolutely blow your socks off. But unfortunately, we can't. That's not our thing. And then all of a sudden that builds a lot of trust and credibility. So that would be one thing. What else? I think the other thing is being mindful that a relationship is long term. It's not about, in the sales context, it's not about winning the deal. And people often will just focus on what do we need to do to win this deal, to get this over the line. Whereas I would kind of switch the mindset towards what do you need to do to build an advocate in this prospect? How do you build advocacy? And that is about giving them insight, giving them value, supporting them through the process they're going through. They may be not feeling particularly comfortable or competent in taking on a supplier to do whatever it is you're going to do. So help them through that process, create somebody who, whether you win the work or not, they're going to talk really positively about you. And will potentially, I have people refer me who I've never worked for. In fact, one time we got invited, my business partner and I got invited, and we had this big posh lunch on the top of the HSBC building in a 5-star Michelin restaurant. I mean, it was just ridiculous. I don't think it was I said, 3-star Michelin restaurant. So that's a 5-star experience, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And the COO of HSBC was recommending us to the incumbent COO of HSBC. They had 57,000 employees. I'd never done any work for the guy. And I didn't really understand what it was, but he'd been to one of our events. He'd had a great time. He'd heard about our proposition. He obviously liked us. And here he was, referring us and doing a really warm handover to the new COO, who unfortunately didn't really appreciate being told what supplier he should use. So it didn't really work. But it was it's amazing what people will do. Yeah.
And that feeling that you get of and I talk to people. I mean, one of the things I'm doing is I'm writing a book called The Conversion Train. Sales is my passion, and with systems, and I when you get those type of referrals, those type of engagement, it's a great feeling, isn't it? Because actually, you just I call it the Serena moment. I use a picture of Serena Williams when she's sort of like in Wimbledon, she wins and she's got that sort of. Yeah. You want to sort of stay still in your chair, but you can't because you're sort of inside you going mad, aren't they? So
yeah, you wait till you get out of the building before you can actually celebrate. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But sales, you talk about sales and actually that engagement, the art and the science of the decision. Decision making is difficult in sales. A lot of people sometimes make the wrong calls in the wrong areas. Is there anything you've done that you think, well, actually, it's about being able to, knowing the scenarios and the things that you've done, whether you thought, actually, no, I've had to sort of take a step back and do something differently. Is there something you were going to do, or more a case that you've just thought, actually, if I do something differently here, I'll get a better result? Is there anything? Because a lot of the time when we talk to people, they rushed headlong into things, and sometimes I always think actually sales sometimes is better at stepping back and actually checking the whole parameter of where you are rather than making rash decisions.
So do you mean being in the sales process? Yes. So you've got a tender or you've got an opportunity, and so I think absolutely the fundamentally, and we always talk about doing the work, doing the thinking work first at the top of the funnel. It's a bit like the sales funnel. Do the strategic thinking, and really the key thing, actually, what I find that people don't do is put themselves in the shoes of the customer. So really get inside their business, their head. What is it they want? And it's that age-old thing of, okay, we've got various service offerings we want to sell to them, but actually, what do they want? And maybe what we've got isn't what they want. And if it is, have the conversation. Be honest. I mean, we won a global sales training program across 27 countries. And during that sales process, I told the client that we did not have global capability. I told them we would build it. Now, a lot of people would have said, we've got it, or we've certainly got more that, make out as though they've got more than they actually had. But I decided to go down the honest, authentic kind of route, and it worked. And we won a global sales program. And I just don't think we would have won it otherwise.
And it's amazing, you talked about, being at the COO level at a bank like HSBC, senior level. I mean, a lot of people worry about selling at that level, don't they, and engaging at that level, even though they're talking to people in the same way as me and you. They worry about it. And is there anything you've sort of, obviously engaged in at that sort of, incredibly senior level of, a tip you can give to people that says, to not to worry about it, because people do, don't they? They're panicking, they're worried about saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing. You've shown that by the guy that recommended you, it's you were natural and normal by the sounds of things. So.
I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous in that situation. I'm less so now. I mean, I don't remember the last time I was nervous, but certainly then Absolutely, I'd be nervous for a senior pitch. I think so. To combat that, my key recommendations would be prepare. It's prepare the arse off it. That's really, excuse my French, but that would be the message. Because if I think about, I went for one pitch to a really senior guy in the construction industry. We'd never worked in the construction industry before, and so what did I do? Well, I sat down and I went online and I learned about the key trends in the construction industry, and I understood based on the brief. I brought that into the context based on the proposition we were putting together, and I wrapped it all together. And by the time I went in there, I was confident that I understood what was going on sufficiently to carry that meeting. And we won it was a £1.6 million deal. So, it can be done. So I would say preparation is the key. But also, back to my earlier point, is be authentic and be yourself, and don't try and be something you're not. And if you're, because the only time to be nervous is if you're trying to sell something that you're not really capable of doing. If you believe in what you're really good at, and you believe what you're selling is going to make a difference and is the right thing for the client, then what's the reason to be nervous? There isn't one.
Totally right. I totally get it.
In fact, you're doing them a favor. Aren't they lucky to be working with you?
Well, it's a great. You say that, and it's exactly like you say. It's having that confidence in yourself. I have a model that I use called Track Fair, which are 9 things that I say to people you got to have as a foundation. And one of them is confidence. And I always say to people, if you haven't got confidence in yourself, then you shouldn't expect anyone else to have it. But you're right. It's having that confidence in what you do, and that helps, I guess, going back to our earlier point of being focused on a specific space. Because if you're focused on a space and a market, then you know that you're confident about that space because you're the best at it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, obviously, when you built the business, there were elements around actually things that you did and what you've achieved in terms of, bringing the right type of expertise. Because obviously, no one can build a business nowadays without bringing the right type of people in. Is there anything you've sort of done, again, advice and thoughts on, how to build a business, to hire people in, to bring the right type of people in that you've served you well over your career?
I would say a couple of things on that. I think the best way to hire people is through referral and network. And sorry for all the recruitment consultants out there, but in the majority of cases, people who you get through your network stay longer. They get a genuine insight into what your business is like through their contact. And so I would say, and so therefore, working back from that, if you want to create an environment where you're getting lots of referrals and connections, it's to create a culture where your people respect you as a leader and will advocate you as a leader. And so, if my staff are going out and say, Christ, you should come and work at Blue Sky, you come and work for Mark, he's great. People go, oh, right, okay, that's really nice to hear, because you don't hear that about a lot of employers. So if you can create that culture internally where people are out there advocating, then you're going to build your network. So that's, I would say bringing in senior people is really difficult. I've done it successfully a couple of times, but unsuccessfully probably more often. And so the art is really to grow your own. I think it's to bring in people that you see have the potential to adopt your ways and your methodologies and to really learn. And I think if there's probably one thing that I look for in taking someone on is a desire and a passion and a real appetite to learn. And if they have that and they can demonstrate that, then the world's their oyster really, and they have huge potential. But there are so many people, particularly, and that's the issue with senior people. They often come in, they think they know it all, they think they've got the stripes, they want to imprint their way of doing things, and don't listen and don't learn. And I can't work with those kinds of people.
No, you're right. I always use that. Here we're a much smaller company. I always say I can teach skills, but I can't teach attitude. So I always think it's an interesting thing in that respect. And you mentioned around actually, your staff and the team that you built and this family. I mean, how did they? Obviously, when you sell a business as well, though, I guess the implications for them is. I mean, I've talked to a couple of other founders who have gone through that process, who felt that was one of their downsides to actually selling, because they actually not so much worried about the impact, but that letting go of something that was their baby, for want of a better phrase, but also that they had a few members of staff that maybe didn't feel quite the same way about the sale process as they did. Was that something you found when you sold Blue Sky, or was that not an issue for you guys?
I think it's always an issue. I think and communication, timely communication, and honest communication is kind of the route out of it. I'm pleased to say that pretty much no one has left Blue Sky in the last, so not even since so one or two people left when we actually sold to Capita. Then they stayed on the journey, but they had the reassurance of me being there. And then when I handed over to my colleague who'd been with me 7 years, since then, when I've been gone, 18 months, 2 years now, and hardly anyone has left. So it can be done. And Capita is a very different beast and a very different business to a boutique consultancy that we built with its own brand. So there were absolutely all the risks associated with it. I think the key is when you negotiate the deal is you want to protect the business. So we retained our brand, we retained our offices, we retained empowerment and control over key decisions. That's all really important. So I'm trying to think, what was the other thing that you...
No, I was just mentioning about how they felt about it in terms of actually what they were thinking.
Yeah.
But in your case, that because as I say, it's that element of change. And when you left Blue Sky, obviously, was there an element for you personally? Because obviously you built this for 16 years. You built a number of years been involved in the business. Was there any elements of you that were like sad as a result of sort of leaving, or were you sort of like, no, I've done this, and it felt like the right time for you when you moved on and then to do other things?
So that for me, that was a real positive of the earnout. So I had a 27-month earnout. So that was more than enough time for me to process the emotion around my departure. And so, I started handing over my role sort of 6 months before leaving. And by the time the date came along, I was absolutely ready. Been there, done that, bought the T-shirt, and ready for now someone else to come in and take it to the next level, and add her, slant to it, her fresh thinking. And I was by that time, I was tired of dealing with what was largely a recurring issues of, okay, how do we grow this business? More marketing, more sales, more, I was no longer getting the same buzz and the same excitement for winning a new client or coming up with a new methodology. That was no longer floating my boat. So it was time to move on.
Sure. And so obviously you moved on, and I guess, but your hunger and desire as a business person doesn't change, I guess, because did you have that sort of feeling of like, well, I've done this once, I want to go and do it again? Was that something you felt sort of pretty much straight after? Or?
No, definitely not. It was far too hard to try and do that all over again. I found it really, really quite tough. What I'm doing now is far more straightforward. So as you know, I'm mentoring and training owners of consulting businesses on helping them accelerate the growth of their business. And it's not easy, but ultimately they're doing the work, and I'm advising them and supporting them and giving them tools and frameworks and methodologies to accelerate their business. So it's more straightforward, and I'm not planning to build another big business to sell. I just want to do great work with great clients and enjoy the journey.
Yeah, and enjoy it. And you said, when we spoke earlier on, that sales and being able to help people in that process is still a passion of yours. Is that still something that you still, trying to help them get? And is that one of the areas where a lot of those sort of, like you said, consultancies sort of need that help and support and challenge? Because like you say, they're good at knowing certain things, but they're not good at knowing other things. And
absolutely, yeah. In fact, I was doing some sales coaching this morning and doing some more tomorrow. So helping clients think through their approach to winning bigger deals. And so it's absolutely what I do, and I love it. I don't get bored of that, because you can't just follow a process. It's not black and white. There are always different ways.
Yeah, there's never one deal the same, and every customer's different in what they say and what they're looking for, and you, as you said earlier on, putting yourself in the shoes of that customer or that prospect, I should say, is key. But no, it's great. I mean, obviously, it's been great. We had a great, appreciate your time today, and I know you're a busy man and family things to do. Just one thing, finally, from my perspective, if you could go sort of back in time and sort of give yourself one piece of advice, is there anything that you would do differently, or do you would think that would be something I'd think about and look at?
Lots of things I would do differently. I think probably the biggest one would be to step back from the day-to-day sooner and invest more. Right. So I was guilty of, hey, we've had a good year, and we used to distribute all our profits like lots of consultants do. They basically make their money, take the money out. With hindsight, we should have left money in and been more strategic. I should have got a mentor sooner than I did, because it makes sense to just learn from other people's mistakes and successes. and to work with people who've been on that path before you. So I should have done that sooner. I should have invested more, and I should have probably defined our propositions more narrowly and our sectors more narrowly than I did. We did do a degree of that. We made some big changes, but we could have taken it to another level, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, that's amazing advice for people that are listening to the podcast, and again, it's something we continue to say. It's something we continue to do ourselves to try and be focused on a specific niche and market, because it's what everyone know. Like you say, it's the route to that, getting that success. But look, it's fantastic to have a chance to talk to you, Mark, and so many ideas and thoughts. I'd love to if I could happily buy you a drink in London or in Guildford the next time I'm in your neck of the woods and learn more, because especially the sales insights, that's an area that's a big passion for mine as well. So always happy to chat through with sales success elements with someone. But yeah, really appreciated your time today. And is there anything finally you wanted to mention in terms of what you're where you're, like say, you're mentoring now, you're helping other consultancies grow? So I guess if there's a plug we can put for you, is there anything we can do to plug your? But is there anyone that specifically that you think would you could benefit from working with obviously from a consultancy perspective?
Well, I'm going to be running some breakfasts in London. Ran an event end of April, and everybody got loads of value out of that. So we're going to be running some more of those. So my website is www.thenub.com, and the information is all on there. And yeah, absolutely. If your listeners are keen to accelerate the growth of their business and would like to work with someone like myself, then I'd love to hear from them. So
great. Just a very big thank you from me, Mark, for your time. It's a lovely sunny day out there, so it's a chance to get back out into to the garden maybe and catch the last few rays of summer of the evening. But look, big thank you from me for your time today. It really is appreciated. And
I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it, James. So thank you very much.
So there you have it. That was the latest edition of the Seven Figure Club podcast with Marc Jantzen from the Nub. So it's, when I look back at this podcast, what an amazing conversation it was to have with Mark, to understand and learn about him and how he achieved the success he did. And I know that a lot of the people that listen to the podcast are consultants and business entrepreneurs who want to grow a business in the same way as Mark has done. And so I think it's a really great chance to listen to his wisdom and knowledge on what you need to do to actually get that success. I also think it's key that Mark is now providing services through the Nub, and will provide a link through the website as to how you as a business consultant can grow your business to be in a position like you were with Mark, and like Mark was, and be in a position where you can take a business from zero to a £10 million sale with Capita is, I'm sure, what most business consultants would love to do. So we'll provide the link to the Nub so that you can make contact with Mark and reach out to him. I know he's doing a mentoring program now, and I'm sure if he'd be really interested in helping you grow your business to where you want it to be. So that was the latest edition of the Seven Figure Club podcast. Once again, I'd like to thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed the stories that we share with people like Mark and others that we've done in the past. We've got a great podcast coming up in a couple of weeks' time with a guy who sold a business for over £200 million. So I can't wait to share that with you. But obviously, if you've got other people that you think could be interesting for us to talk to, people such as Mark who have had great success that would be great to listen to and learn from, please do come back to us, share it with us. The details are included at the bottom of the podcast itself. You can always send me an email at j.white@intouchcrm.com or reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you search for James White in Touch, you'll find me on LinkedIn. And I'd welcome the chance to talk to your colleagues and friends that have been successful in that way, so we can share their stories as well. So thanks once again for listening to this edition for the Seven Figure Club podcast. My name's James White. I'm the founder of In Touch. And In Touch, we help people convert prospects into customers. So if this is something that you feel you need some help with as well, then also reach out to us and we'll be happy to show you how we can help you drive your business forward. Until the next time, we'll speak soon.